Hi, I'm Mark, and this is My Electric Life. Hi, welcome back to the channel. Do you like pizza? Me too. And it's been a long time coming, but I've decided to finally get round to making a review of this little beaut device that I showed you, or I gave you a tease of a year ago, called the Breville Pizzaiolo pizza oven. So this is it over here, and it's a very nice slimline product that's got a lot of stainless steel. It's designed to be able to be used indoors and outdoors, although I would say if you were using it indoors, you definitely want to have it underneath a range hood, because it does emit quite a bit of smoke. Not so much smoke, I think it's more moisture, water vapor, but there is a lot of emission comes out of it, so you'd want to make sure you had a hood over the top of it. But mine is outside here on my little outdoor kitchen. It sits beside my Crossray electric barbecue that I previewed about a year ago, and I use these a lot, especially in the summertime. And I'm thinking today I might have a pizza for lunch, so I can show you how to get the best out of this machine. But right up front, it's very easy to operate, very uncomplicated. There's a couple of dials on the front there, and you can customize it if you want to really geek out. But to be honest with you, I use the default setting. The one I like to use the most is the wood-fired setting, because it really truly does give you something approximating a true wood-fired pizza. And how it can do that is because it's able to get an extreme amount of heat inside this heating chamber in here. Now when I open that up, you can see there's a stone in there, and this has two elements inside of it. So there's one heating element that is underneath the stone to heat the stone, and then there's another, well, it's a double element, but I call it one element in the top. So that radiates a lot of heat onto the top of the pizza. And combining those two together, we can get to a temperature of 400 degrees Celsius inside that chamber. And you really need to get to that sort of a temperature to cook a proper wood-fired style pizza. So why do I say that? Well, it's that intense radiant heat that gets the air pockets inside the dough to expand rapidly. And so whether you're baking bread or you're making pizza, you need that intense heat to cause that rapid expansion of the air pockets inside the dough, and that makes the dough rise rapidly in the oven, and you get that amazing oven rise. And we'll see this in the crust of the pizza when I make it shortly. But you cannot get that in a conventional oven. It's important to point that out. So you can cook pizza in a conventional oven. You can put a stone in your oven, heat that up to the maximum temperature, which for most ovens is going to be 250 degrees. And you know, it'll cook a reasonable pizza, but you'll never get that wood-fired style, because you've got to have 400 degrees or something approximating that to get that amazing rise in the dough. And one of the amazing things about it is that even though it's reaching that extreme temperature inside there, when this is operating, and I'll show you in a short moment, it's up to temperature at 400 degrees Celsius, and yet I can put my hand on the top of this and it just feels mildly warm, which is really good to know, because, you know, just in case a child or somebody was to touch that, they're not going to burn themselves. How they achieve that, I don't know. It's very clever, but somehow they manage to keep the outside very cool compared to the inside. Now, I should just say, when you get this, you get a couple of nice, useful accessories here. These things came along with the machine. So there's this cutting blade, pizza cutter. I'll just take the protective cover off that. It's that conventional single blade. It's not the conventional wheel that you often see people cutting pizzas with. It's a single blade, but I prefer this because, as you would know if you've used those wheels, they get all gummed up with cheese and very mucky, and they're quite a pain in the ass to clean, whereas this is much easier just to clean off after you've finished using it. Also, to go with that blade, there's this kind of segmented cutting board, which is handy because it shows you where to put the blade when you're cutting, which is quite handy. You get equal size segments. And the other thing that comes with it, which is obviously essential, is a peel. And that's obviously to transfer the pizza from the bench top where you're making it and into the oven. So you'll see how I use that shortly. Okay, so I'm going to turn this on now, so it's heating up, and while it's doing that I can go in and get my pizza ready. So that's very simple to do. There's a dial on the front here, and you can turn that to whatever you like. There's a lot of different settings on here. There's even a setting for frozen pizza, but God knows why you'd want to ever eat a frozen pizza again when you've got a machine like this. So you can have pan, thick crust, thin and crispy, and today I'm going to go for wood-fired because that's my favourite. There's an adjustment knob here to make it darker or lighter, but I find the mid settings perfect for that, so I don't need to play around with that. And I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a little flashing, slowly flashing white light there. Might not come out too well on this camera, but that's just a pulsing white light that tells you it's heating. And when it's up to temperature, that light will go hard on white and it'll sound a little alarm to let me know that it's up to temperature. It takes about 15 minutes to get to temperature. And then over here next to that knob is the timer knob. Again, it might be hard to see, but these are little minute marks and it's illuminated up to 2 minutes on here. So when I put the pizza in, all I need to do is press that button and it'll start the timer for 2 minutes, and literally 2 minutes is all it takes to cook a wood-fired pizza in here, which is remarkably quick. Okay, well, to make a good pizza, it starts with a good pizza dough. So as anyone who's made pizza before knows, I'm going to spend the next hour or two mixing up flour and water to make it into a nice dough, adding yeast, waiting for it to prove, knocking it down, re-kneading it, and so on and so forth for the next hour or so. Nah, just kidding. I haven't got time to do all that. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use this. And this is a great product that I discovered. This company called Sugo 2. Oh, and apologies for the quality of the box. I, like a professional YouTuber that I am, I scrunched it up and put it in the bin and then realized I was going to need it to show to you. But anyway, never mind that. This box of dough comes with 4 dough balls in there, and it goes in your freezer. It's made by a company called Sugo 2. I get no sponsorship money from them. I just love their product and I'm happy to endorse it because it's such a great product. I think they come from Brisbane, if I'm right, in Queensland, Mansfield. And this is what I'm going to be using today. So if you want to make a good pizza, I recommend this product. You pull a dough ball out of the freezer, let it thaw for 4 or 5 hours, and then once it's thawed and the yeast inside the dough started to activate again, then it's ready to go to the next step of making your pizza and the stretching. Life's too short, right? Okay, now everyone has their own favourite pizza topping. For me, I like to keep it simple. I think the best is the Napolitana, which is simply just your pizza base with tomato sauce spread evenly, some nice mozzarella, and then finish it off with fresh basil. You can put some salt and pepper if you want, a bit of oil if you like, but I like to keep it really simple. That's the way God intended pizzas to be made. Now, to start things, what we need is our ingredients. We need, firstly, a peel, which is what we're going to make the pizza on, and then we're going to transfer it into the oven with that peel. And then we need our ingredients. So as I said, here I've got mozzarella sliced and some beautiful fresh basil that I bought at the market this morning. I've also got here, which is a mixture, just a couple of teaspoons. It's a mixture 50-50 of flour and semolina. And this stuff is like ball bearings. You can put it on your pizza peel and then the pizza will slide off just effortlessly into the oven. And I also put it on my bench top. I prefer to prepare my pizza on the stone bench top. I find that's the best surface to work with. So that's what that's for. You need your tomato sauce, of course. I'm just using Lego's pizza sauce. It's nothing flash, but it does a reasonably good job. I quite like the flavour of that. And of course, last but not least, we need our pizza dough ball, this is now thawed and it's in its bag. And I like the way they package this. It's easy to get out of the bag. They put lots of flour in there, so it just slides out. Very easy to work with. I will need to get my scissors to cut that bag open with, so I'm just going to do that now. Got my trusty scissors. Now, it is a good idea to have all your ingredients prepared and ready to go like this, because you don't want to be faffing about making your pizza. You want to get it made up and on the peel and off the peel into the oven fairly quickly. If you leave a pizza prepared sitting on the peel for too long, what happens is the moisture from the dough wets the peel and wets this flour that I'm putting underneath the pizza, and then there's a risk that it'll stick to the peel. And if you've ever made that mistake, you'll know it's not something you want to repeat, because when you try to slide it off the peel into the oven, what happens is the pizza base sticks on the peel and all your ingredients fly off into the oven, and then you make for a very nasty, messy oven to clean up. So we're going to work reasonably quickly. First thing to do, obviously, is to spread a bit of this flour about. So I put a reasonable amount there on the peel. You want enough on this peel so that the pizza will slip easily. You don't want so much that when you slide it into the oven that you get a lot of this dust in the oven, and then what will happen is, because the oven's so hot, this will burn and you'll actually get a lot of smoke, excuse me, which may be good if you want that wood-fired effect, but you don't want too much fire coming out of your oven. So the next thing is then obviously flour the bench top surface here. You'll find it doesn't need a lot of flour, because the dough is quite easy to work out of the bag. Now, if you're hoping that you're going to see me spinning dough through the air and throwing it up at the ceiling and catching it, I hate to disappoint you, but that's not going to happen here today, because I'm not an expert on shaping pizza doughs. So for me, the way I like to approach this is I use what I call the steering wheel method. So I'll show you how that works. We get the dough ball, plonk it down like that. First thing we do is we push with our fingers from the center to the outside, and you'll notice that it's starting to get a bit of a rim. So it's getting thin in the middle with a rim on the outside, and that's the start of my steering wheel. And I'm going to pick this up like a car steering wheel. I'm going to turn it just like I would a wheel. And what will happen is the weight of the dough causes it to stretch. And I'm just gripping onto the edge of the dough so that thickened bit at the end doesn't stretch too much, because I don't want the edge of the dough to be too thin. I still want to have a nice thick crust on the outside, but I want the inside of this dough to thin out till it's about, pretty thin, maybe a couple of millimeters. So I'll just put that down there. It's starting to take shape now. You can see there. And we're not making a big pizza here today, because one limitation on the machine is it can't handle a really big pizza. So you're limited pretty much to the size of that peel that you can see there. So we're getting pretty close now to the size, but this is a great size for a single pizza, for one, which is what I'm making today. And if you've got a crowd of people, you can make a lot of them. And the good thing is with this machine is you can make lots of pizzas one after the other, because they're so quick to cook. They only take 2 minutes. And so you can actually prepare different ingredients for toppings and let your guests top their own pizza. I forgot to get a spoon, so I'm just going to get a spoon out of the drawer here. What you need is just a dessert spoon to put your tomato sauce on with. And that's simple. You just plonk a bit in the middle there, and then you spread it around with the spoon. Yeah, so as I said, you can, if you're having a party, and I've done this before, you can get a bunch of guests that, want to fuss about their own toppings. You can have all the things chopped up, your mushrooms and onions and all the other ingredients you might want to put on a topping. And then they can be preparing their pizza while you're cooking one. And you're going to take 2 minutes to get one in and out of the oven, so then you're ready to put the next one in the oven. And everyone can have what they want, which is perfect, right? So having done that now, what I'm going to do, before I put the topping on, I'm just going to give that a slide. You see how that slides on the peel? Always a good idea to check that it's still slippery, because once you start putting some weight on there, by putting toppings on, it can bog down if it's not, you haven't got enough dust underneath it. So there's my mozzarella. Now I'm just going to put some basil on here. And one thing you'll notice about the basil when this cooks, it's really counterintuitive, but when you've got a super hot oven at 400 degrees, you would think it would burn, just completely incinerate that basil. But it actually doesn't. It cooks better in a high oven like that than it would in a conventional oven, because it cooks so quickly, it just dehydrates, but it doesn't burn. Okay, so that's ready to go in the oven now. I'll give it a bit of a slide there to make sure it's still slipping, and we'll go and pop that in the oven. Okay, now as I said, we have to work quickly here to get this into the oven. So we open the door, we put the peel on the edge, right at the back, and we slip that on until the edge of the pizza just grabs on the hot plate, on the stone, and then we can slide that out, close the door, and push our little timer button here. Now that's a 2-minute timer, so we haven't got to wait too long, and we'll get a little alarm when the 2 minutes is up. And what you'll start to see in a moment is a lot of what looks like smoke, but most of it is water vapor coming out of that pizza. So it's literally being incinerated in there at the moment. We'll need our peel ready to take that out. So when the 2 minutes is up, and you need to be very strict on that 2 minutes, you go much over, you'll have a burnt mess. So you have to, right on the 2-minute mark, get out here, get your peel in there, and get it out of there. So yeah, if you're cooking a batch of them, like I said before with a party, you need to not get distracted. So let your guests look after putting their toppings on, but you need to stay focused on your oven and getting your pizzas out on time. So you can start to see now the smoke coming up there. As I said, I can put my hand on the top of this, and this is the incredible thing. This is 400 degrees Celsius inside, but I can put my hand on here and leave it there. It just feels like warm water. It's incredible how it can do that. See that smoke, or what I would call vapor actually, coming out of there? That's why if you use this indoors, you're going to want to have that with a range hood over the top of it. Okay, so where are we at? We're down to 1 minute. When I look in there, I can see it's rising up nicely, that crust. And if it cooks perfectly, if you know what a perfect wood-fired pizza looks like, on the crust around the outside you'll have leopard spots. That's what we're looking for. Don't want burning, but we want some nice little dark brown spots to say that that's cooked properly. And I can see that happening in there now. We're down to the last 30 seconds on the timer, so it's nearly ready to come out. Quite a bit of vapor coming out the top now. There's the bell, so we open her up, get our peel in there, slide her out, and look at that little beauty. I'm just going to turn the knob here to turn that off now, and that'll go into a cool down cycle. And you can see here, beautiful pizza there, lovely melted cheese. Our basil is not burnt, it's still green, but it's dehydrated. And we've got, as I said, those lovely leopard spots on the top of on the edge of the pizza. So that is a perfect pizza. I'm going to take that in now and cut it on the cutting board. Okay, so this is the Breville chopping board that comes with the machine. I can slide that pizza onto there, and the nice people at Breville put some indentations in the board to show me where to cut, which is quite handy. And we just line the blade up with those indentations and chop away. 1, 2, whoops, and 3, and there's our perfectly chopped up pizza. I'll give you a bit of a look at that. So you can see there, lovely pizza, beautiful crust, lovely melted cheese, thin in the middle, nice thick crust on the outside, the leopard spots that are the signature mark normally of a wood-fired pizza, but of course this is not a wood-fired pizza, but it's the nearest thing you'll get cooked at home. And the only thing left for me to do now is to enjoy it. Bon appetit. So if you've been watching this channel for some time, you know the key focus is reducing carbon emissions and energy efficiency. And so it would be remiss of me to review this product if I weren't to cover those elements off in here. So how does this pizza oven compare in terms of energy use and carbon emissions compared to a conventional oven? If you were to cook a pizza in a conventional oven, which is really the alternative most people would use at home, how would that compare? And key to working out carbon emissions, as you no doubt understand, carbon emissions are proportional to energy efficiency for any given fuel. So if we're using electricity for our fuel, there'll be an inherent carbon density for that fuel, and that's going to be the same whether we're using that electricity for our pizza oven or for our conventional oven. So the only thing that will determine which one creates the most carbon emissions will be how long it takes to cook our pizza times the power rating of the appliance. And so we're going to delve into that now and have a look at the comparison between those two options. I'm making some assumptions here, so I'll let you know what those are up front. The assumptions are that if I cook one pizza in the Pizzaiolo oven, it will take me 15 minutes to warm the oven up to temperature, and it takes 2 minutes for the pizza to cook. My assumption on a conventional oven is, well, you would need to have it at the maximum temperature of 250 degrees for a normal oven. And to reach that temperature, it's probably going to take you at least 15 minutes to get it up to temperature, possibly longer, but I'll allow 15 minutes. And then it's probably going to take you 20 minutes to cook a pizza at that temperature. So those are the assumptions I'm starting with here to do these calculations. And now we'll delve into this spreadsheet and have a look at the outcome. So looking at the conventional oven, my oven here in my home has a power rating of actually 3.6 kilowatts at the maximum when you've got it turned up to the maximum. So I'm rounding that down to 3 kilowatts because it would be at the maximum power consumption when it's heating, but then to hold the temperature it's going to come back a little bit. So I'm estimating about a 3 kilowatt power consumption for the conventional oven. For the Breville Pizzaiolo, its power rating, even though it's running 2 elements, the total power is only 1.8 kilowatts. So quite a bit less than a conventional oven, almost half. Now here's where it gets interesting in the energy consumption side. So energy is basically power times time. So I've put in the first column the amount of energy that would be consumed during the warm-up cycle. And for a conventional oven, as I said, I'm allowing 15 minutes. And likewise for the Pizzaiolo, that would be a 15-minute warm-up time as well. So for the conventional oven, that's going to consume 0.75 of a kilowatt hour to warm up. And the Breville is going to use 0.45 of a kilowatt hour to warm up to temperature. So quite a bit less, as you'd expect. Then we come to the cooking time, and this is where it gets really interesting. So in a conventional oven, when I've used one to cook a pizza, it's typically taken about 20 minutes to cook that pizza. So for that amount of time, a conventional oven is going to use approximately a kilowatt hour of energy. We compare that to the Breville, it's only taking 2 minutes or 1/30th of an hour to cook that pizza. So that equates to an energy consumption of only 0.06 of a kilowatt hour, which is way less than a conventional oven. And when you tally these two up, the difference between the conventional oven and the Breville is almost 2 to 1. So your conventional oven is going to use 4.75 kilowatt hours, whereas your Breville is only going to use 2.31 kilowatt hours. And if we assume that they're on the same electricity source, which they would be in someone's house, then that means that the Breville is going to create half the carbon emissions that the conventional oven does. So that's worth considering if your focus is, as it is for me, on reducing the carbon emissions from your lifestyle. But not only that, when you pay your electricity bill, what you're paying for is energy consumption. And this means that your Breville has cost half as much money to cook a pizza as your conventional oven would. So pretty compelling business case, I would have thought. Well, if you're contemplating buying one of these ovens, I would like to summarise for you the pros and cons as I see them. So on the pros side, this is a really excellent appliance and it makes a superb pizza. I doubt that you could get anything closer to a wood-fired pizza at home with any other appliance, excepting if you want to go and build a wood-fired oven in your backyard. And some people do that, and good luck to them. But for me, this is the much easier alternative. I also like the fact that it heats up very hot to 400 degrees, which is genuine pizza oven temperature, and yet the outside never gets above blood temperature to touch. So it's a very safe unit to have around your home. If somebody were to bump up against it when it's running, they're not going to suffer any risk of a burn. So I really like the way they've achieved that. It's very quick to warm up, 15 minutes to warm up, so you can have a pizza on a whim if you like, no problems there. And it's relatively easy to clean up afterwards, although I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. So that's great as well. It is very efficient on energy. As we've looked at the numbers, you can see it doesn't use very much energy to cook a pizza, which is great. And because of the fast cook time of being just 2 minutes to cook a pizza, you can run batches of pizzas through there. So if you're having a party, you can let your guests put their own toppings on and then run them through at 2 minutes a turn. So it's very good for that kind of a scenario. So those are the positives. On the negative side, the most obvious thing obviously is the price. This is not a cheap machine by any means. It's retails at just under $1,000. So it's really top of the top of the shelf kind of appliance. Now, there are other electric pizza ovens available, and probably some of them could do almost as good a job. I haven't tested them, so I can't recommend any. But I would say if you're looking for one, then the two things to look for. The first would be it needs to get to a very high internal temperature, somewhere around 400 degrees C. And the second thing is look for a top element and a bottom element so you can get that intense radiant heat into the pizza while it's cooking, and obviously to have a stone in the bottom. So those are the features to look for. But it is an expensive machine, so I'm calling that out. The second thing is that it's relatively easy to clean up, but there are some little places where you tend to get flour in, particularly around the front door hinge. It gets flour underneath it, and it's a bit hard to get in there to clean that out. I've found, using a bit of paper towel through there, I can usually get it out, or worst case with a vacuum nozzle, if you can get a thin nozzle in there, you can get it out that way as well. But it would have been good if there was an easy way to lift that front hinge up and get underneath it to clean that out. That would have been a good design feature. But boy, they haven't got much wrong in this design, I have to say. The last thing is not really a con, but it's a call out. If you're going to be using this inside the home, you really need to have it under a range hood, because quite a lot of vapor comes out the front door. Probably there's some smoke particles in there as well, and you don't want to be breathing that stuff into your lungs. So you definitely want to have an exhaust hood over the top of it. But because it's a relatively small footprint, you can put it on top of your hot plates and it'll fit there easily. So those are the pros and the cons. On balance, this is an appliance that I'd recommend if you're looking for such a thing, and if you're prepared to pay a relatively high price for it, then I would recommend this over cheaper alternatives, because as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for. So I hope this has been useful information to you, and thank you for watching this video if you've got this far. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. And in the meantime, take care and be safe.